All right, folks, I hope you're having a blessed weekend and enjoying your Saturday. Just got off our Discord weekly call where I did an XRP DeFi deep dive. In this market update, I'm going to make a quick note, a DeFi warning. Some of these platforms calling themselves DeFi, and it couldn't be further from the truth, but that's okay. We just want folks to be transparent and honest before they ask us for our XRP. And on an asset like XRP that we're still expecting significant price appreciation, why would I be trying to make 3, 4, 5% on my XRP when even Standard Charter, a US bank, is talking about XRP pumping 500% to just a conservative $12 price target? So let's get right on into it, folks. Couple things here on the macro climate, environment, and markets, really what we're up against right now, and then we'll get into the cryptocurrency update. So we're looking at the recent sell-off in the treasury market and the real problems that we're up against here, the real threat that we're up against, with the largest holders of treasuries being foreign countries and foreign investors owning upwards of 8.5 trillion or 33% of the total US treasury market. Japan is the top foreign owner of 1.08 trillion of US government bonds. We've talked about the reverse carry trade, right? That Japan reverse carry trade and the Japanese yen versus the US dollar, that currency pairing, how that when that started to break down here, you got Japan, when forced and backed into the corner, they have over 1 trillion of US government bonds that they could potentially be selling off. In second, you have China with 760 billion. 31% or 8 trillion is held by financial sectors, including banks, mutual funds, and hedge funds. The government and household only owns 24% and 11% of the United States Treasury market, respectively. So foreign holdings of U.S. Treasuries are huge, and to strengthen and bolster their currencies, and basically with a global margin call taking place, you're seeing hedge funds have to dump treasuries. You're seeing countries that might strategically attack us by dumping our treasuries, and Japan and China are basically the big one being China, right? As we play our hand here, force them in this tariff trade war, what do they have against us? Well, they can offload 700 billion of US treasuries, and this process of them dumping treasuries has already began, and it's something to note. Now, Peter Schiff notes here that it's not just the 760 billion of US treasuries, they also have 1.3 trillion that they own in US government guaranteed mortgage-backed securities. That's over 2 trillion to weaponize against us, on top of, other considerations within the trade. They already have significant manufacturing infrastructure in place, very strong in their own right, a country and civilization that's been there for 5,000 plus years. They're going to hold their own against us. And so we're just looking at right now is President Trump and Scott Bessent, they were willing to sacrifice our stock market to get that bond yield to come down, to get those interest rates to come down, but then it quickly reversed course, right? Basically, you had 100 basis points removed on the interest rates, basically a full 1% interest rate cut on that 10-year bond. When President Trump took office, it was at 4.8. Their actions basically led to that 10-year coming down to 3.8%. But then over the past week, it bounced right back up to 4.6%, basically wiping out all of the progress that they made trying to get interest rates to come down. Now, we have President Trump calling out Jerome Powell, and we're also up against what seemingly, is supposed to be our own United States Federal Reserve, but we know that they're not federal, and we know that they don't have reserves, and now we're up against Jerome Powell playing politics and working against us as well, with Zero Hedge commenting here from Bank of America, actually. Bank of America saying that the Fed cut 50 basis points in September of last year, leading up to that election, when the stock market was at a record high. The Atlanta Fed was forecasting positive 3% GDP, but now the Fed is determined not to cut. They're playing tough, playing politics, even after the market's already plunged 20%, and with the Atlanta Fed now forecasting negative 3% GDP growth. And I just covered it in yesterday's update. The GDP Now tracker from the Atlanta Fed is down to negative 2.2%. So not quite the 3% that they were expecting just last month, but still negative 2% GDP. And in fact, our GDP is going to be much worse because we've been importing so much gold, which is an interesting data point in and of itself. But we're up against our own Fed. We're up against China and other foreign investors of treasuries, all working against us and working against President Trump and Scott Bessent, trying to lower those rates so that households and small businesses on Main Street can refinance debt at more favorable terms. We got a global margin call taking place, and if these rates don't come down, the bleed out is going to continue on Main Street. Here's where it gets interesting, though, in regards to the markets being disconnected from Main Street and how quickly that liquidity can come back into these markets. And in particular, I think you're going to see a lot of liquidity coming into utility-based cryptos in America. A point on that next. But first, Chad Steingraber showing us my point right here. You have M2 money supply globally going vertical. You're looking at US M2, Japan, China, and the Euro M2 all going vertical like a meme coin chart. I mean, just incredible to see. And so this showcases us here that there's already plenty of liquidity ready to go. And you got comments from the Fed over the past 2 weeks that they're on standby, on watch, with the tools ready to come in and save the day, right? You know, the Fed and Jerome Powell, they want to get credit for that soft landing and saving the day. But at this point, they're playing politics, holding out right now. And ultimately, we should just get rid of the Federal Reserve completely. But in the meantime, we are up against them. So as we navigate this, where are we at on the timeline? I shared a full breakdown of it yesterday, but I want to run folks through it once again real quick. You got Ukraine mineral rights deal getting signed next week on Thursday, as long as Zelensky behaves himself. Q1 2025 GDP release at the end of the month. We'll see how bad was it. Talking head pundits and mainstream media going to be blaming the big bad orange man. You already know that one. And then you have 3 ProShares XRP ETFs going live at the end of the month, so additional institutional exposure on the way. Fed interest rate decision on May 7th. Are they going to hold out with another pause? Or will we finally get a rate cut on May 7th? We'll be watching that one closely. We'll get April CPI released on May 13th. And then you get another Fed interest rate decision in June 18th. And then another interest rate decision in July. Now, the market has priced in a 90% odds that we will get at least one rate cut by July. So my expectation is that the market's going to start to price in that rate cut. By the time we get the rate cut, the market might actually be going down, right? Because that will be the final signal from the Fed that, yeah, our economy's in trouble. It's not as strong as you were led to believe, but it's not our fault. It's the big bad orange man in the White House, right? So the setup here, the stage is set for the market to rally in expectation of the Fed rate cut. By the time we get the cuts, though, June, July, where are we going to be at? Well, it's going to be interesting to watch because not only do we have those dates on the calendar that we can mark off right now, but we also are going to be watching Trump sign additional trade deals and peace deals. The SEC versus Ripple case is going to officially be coming to an end. More XRP ETFs are on the way. Stablecoin regulations by August. There's also additional catalyst, Coinbase derivatives going live. Additional futures products for XRP going live. I mean, we have this news that came out yesterday. Hashkey Capital partnering up with Ripple as an early investor to launch Asia's first XRP tracker fund. So this is the expanding additional institutional access to XRP in Japan. So you're just adding up all of these bullish catalysts that are specific to XRP, and it coincides with where we're at on the macro events, the macroeconomic data, which I believe that the GDP for Q1 will be negative. Let the media and the talking heads figure out who to blame. We know why. But let them tell us who and who to blame and who to get mad about, right? But we're just going to recognize where we're at and what that means for the Fed having ammunition to now cut rates, ease up conditions. And they already gave us the signal last month, as we warned about, that they were going to be reducing quantitative tightening. Okay, so conditions are about to ease. Right now, we're still risk off. Inflation expectations are rising. Uncertainties there. Despite Trump talking about egg prices coming down, everything else is still more expensive. And the corporations have been getting away with price gouging too. So even though oil prices coming down, you're still getting squeezed at the pump depending on which state you're in too. I know my state, we have some of the highest gas taxes in the nation. So despite, oil prices coming down, if you're in California, Oregon, Washington, you might not be feeling it yet, right? And if you're in one of these states where you're in shambles and you're in loony land, you're not making much progress, right? Despite prices coming down in other areas across the country, despite that rate of inflation growth coming back down, we're not feeling it yet. But all of this to say, the worst is probably behind us when it comes to the Trump trade war, the tariff war. The worst is behind us. We've been desensitized to it. So unless we go into a full-blown World War III, unless the aliens arrive, unless we get another black swan, we've probably seen the worst. We've probably flushed out the worst. Most of the leverage was wiped out, and now our market's going to reverse. And do I want to be in the stock market during this reversal? No, don't care to. Where I want to be is utility cryptos based in America, especially an asset like XRP, which is about to have DeFi explode within our ecosystem. And that was the topic of conversation in today's Discord weekly call that I just got done with. And Panos makes a very important point right here. He says, you are the bank. Don't forget that. This is the power blockchain and especially the XRP ledger gives you. You are in control. You decide when, where, and how. Stop trusting middlemen and centralized platforms. Stop giving up custody of your assets. Take control of what's yours. Now, obviously, being in control, participating in DeFi, it's not going to be for everybody. Some folks are going to have to rely on middlemen, and there's going to be plenty of people willing to do that. That's kind of the topic of today's call that I had with my Discord group, was I ran through the current DeFi programs and platforms that have come so far and additional ones that will be coming around the corner. But I noted how you have these quote unquote DeFi platforms. Now they're calling themselves CDeFi, which is their own made up term, centralized, decentralized finance, right? CDeFi. It's an oxymoron. What are we talking about here? We're making up terms as we go. And it relates back to the main theme that I was trying to get across to the community here. We've already sent millions of XRP. These platforms, I'll just name a couple, Doppler, White Rock, and there's a couple others, have already collected tens of millions of XRP. How are they generating a yield? Well, they've been pretty vague. And this is where I'm just trying to have a conversation here about what to look out for, how to conduct due diligence on these platforms. And before we give up our XRP, let's understand that we have a lot of potential opportunities coming to the table where you're going to have centralized platforms. You're going to have the suits sitting across the table from you, ready to take your XRP. We're talking about traditional banks and institutions. We're talking about new money managers sitting across the table from you. But then you also have the ability to go directly to the XRP ledger protocol level, engage in the AMM, provide liquidity over there. I talked about the example of basically one of the liquidity pools that I engaged in. I talked about that example of how I went into the XRP casino coin liquidity pool. I made 70% cash on cash return in about 1 year, which is fantastic, right? And it's actually way better than a lot of these other platforms are offering right now. A lot of these other platforms are still only at 4 or 5% yield on your XRP. Well, I went and made 70% on my XRP casino coin liquidity pool, but if I would have just held XRP, I would have made 400%. I'd still be up 300% even with XRP just at $2 right now. So that's where we want to understand before we give up our XRP, whether it be to the AMM, whether it be to these centralized platforms, whether it be to the suits, the banks, the institutions, they're all going to be sitting across the table from us. And he who has the gold makes the rules as long as you know you have the power, as long as you know you are in control. And before you just blindly relinquish control of your XRP to somebody with a nice promise. Now, I went to Grok and I asked Grok what to look out for in terms of DeFi protocols. And this is what it said. I thought it was very interesting. I asked the question, when investing into a DeFi protocol, what should one consider? Just right here, you're going to be able to decide just based off the project fundamentals when you're looking at the team, the use case, the white paper, and the roadmap. Generally, in most cases, if you just answer and look into these questions right here, you'll know whether you can just stop the due diligence process right there and move on, or whether you need to look further. Additional considerations would be security, right? How solid is the code, the protocol, the smart contracts? Who have they done audits, etc.? The tokenomics, if a token's involved, we need to understand that. Protocol metrics, how much total value lock is there? Are other people trusting it, right? Market and competition, governance and community, risks, liquidity and accessibility, yield and incentives, due diligence tools. And we're just now getting on DeFi Llama, Dex Screener, and some of these other platforms that are helping us to track this and getting more exposure to XRP Ledger DeFi. But in most cases, I'm just going to ask one, where is the yield being generated from? Who is the team behind this? And where are they going to be storing our XRP while they generate this yield, right? I want to make sure my XRP is secure. I want to make sure we have a team with track record. And then my simple way is basically, if the way that you're going to generate yield can't be explained in one simple sentence, it's probably a pass for me. This doesn't need to be overly complex. It shouldn't be some elaborate scheme. The ways that we generate yield in TradeFi aren't that much different from how we're going to generate it in DeFi. Whether you're relying on a central intermediary middleman to do it for you, or whether you're relying on the DeFi protocol, the way that yield gets generated is there's nothing new under the sun here that's been created through DeFi. It's just the way that you're providing liquidity is now being done in a decentralized way through the AMM, for example, right? And so if you guys want to check it out, I put this on my Patreon, and so it's available for purchase. If you just want to pay, it's $5, $5.89 to join our Patreon group, and you'll get access to this right here, this Discord weekly call that we recorded today. If you want to see what we do in the Discord group, if you want to see what it's all about, or if you just want to get this one piece of content, this one video, it's available for $5.89. But I really go more in depth on these individual platforms like White Rock, Doppler, and then I speak on my experience with the XRP Ledger AMM, and I speak specific to how I plan on investing in the XRP Ledger, the XRP RLUSD liquidity pool later on this bull run. So check that out. I also wanted to take this opportunity to let everybody know, I mentioned the project Zebec Network last week, the ticker's ZBCN. We've seen that one move, and I'll show you the chart here in a second. I also wanted to let everybody know that you can stake your ZBCN through their protocol as well. I don't know what all is entailed and how this program works out, so I'm just letting everybody know that it is available. I haven't done due diligence. I'm not staking my Zebec, but I did want to let everybody know that it is here. And you can take a look here. They've already got 1.6 billion total staked, and you can lock it up for 1 month at 8%, 3 months at 12%, and then you can do 4 months for 15% APY. Okay? So I wanted to let everybody know about that. And then real quick before we sign off today, let's take a look at the price charts on Zebec and XRP. We got a 0.001 Zebec. We did drop a 0 over the past couple days, and it appears that we've set a new support right here. So that's good to see. But my targets on Zebec here, we go a lot higher. And I'm going to be dropping my deep dive on this coin later this week. This upcoming week here, I'll be dropping the full deep dive on this one. And I'll give you some of my targets on the upside here. But this thing, I think, just has a ways to go. Right, just going back up to its previous all-time high when it first rebranded back at the beginning of 2024, you're talking about a 235% move from where we're trading at right now. So just doing that would be nice, but I pulled 2 fibs right here. One from more of a macro fib from where we started off in the all-time high on this one, and then I also pulled a fib from the most recent February pump as well too. And so on the bounce back up here, if you just go to this 2618, you're talking a 300% move. Up to the 3618, you're talking a 400, 500% move. If you look at the macro fib here, though, if we go up into this one, just to the 2618, you're talking a 600% move. To this 3618, you're talking 900%. So conservatively, 3 to 5x is definitely in the cards. Maybe more. These are the types of opportunities that I'm looking at across the crypto space. I told you on Zebec Network, and I'll talk about it in my deep dive. It checks all the boxes, has momentum, And with conservative retracement, we're looking at a really nice opportunity. Real quick, let's check XRP. XRP kind of just hanging out here above $2, right at $2.08 right now. And I think that we're going to see XRP moving to the upside very shortly with the broader market. But those additional catalysts that are specific to XRP, that's what's going to be driving this one, with or without the crypto space. But I do think that you have broader macro bullish catalysts that are about to turn around and arrive, with specific catalysts to XRP that will also be fueling this asset higher as well. Once again, I'm just stacking a portfolio of utility cryptocurrencies that are based in America, have strong fundamentals, a growing ecosystem and community. In particular with XRP, that DeFi is set to explode. It's already started, and it's going to continue from here. Zebec is a little hidden gem, a little low cap gem. Not a lot of eyeballs on it yet, but that's going to change here soon. And so it's just a matter of catching the momentum, finding these solid projects, and waiting for the macro theme to turn back around as we go into a risk-on environment. We're going to be positioned for that. The bull run will return. The bull run is not over. We're actually still in the middle of it, despite what some people are seeing out there. So patience is key, staying focused on good fundamental projects. And then in the meantime, we can explore some of these DeFi programs and protocols to figure out how we're going to be able to generate passive income on XRP and other utility cryptos that we're going to hold long term. Very exciting opportunities ahead for us, okay? So once again, if you want to get access to the XRP DeFi deep dive that I did today, go to my Patreon. You sign up for $5, you get access there. Or if you want to go fully join our community in the Discord group, that is available as well. And stay tuned. We have the Zebec network deep dive along with some other coins we're going to be reviewing next week as well. So make sure you guys have subscribed, hit that notification bell. If you appreciate our content, make sure you like this video, help us out by sharing it out far and wide, and we will see you in the next one. Have a great Easter and a great weekend. Thank you so much. I am your host, Zach Rector. I really appreciate all of the love and support. If you want to support the channel, just remember that you can start by smashing that thumbs up for me, sharing this content far and wide, and everything else is at my website.